Modern values, secularism, rationality, democracy, subjectivity, individualism, mixing of the sexes, tolerance, materialism, had infected Islam through the agency of Western colonialism.
I want to share with you several important points from the book that I'm reading now, The Looming Tower, Al-Qaeda and the Road to 9/11. Links are in the description below. We're talking about Sayyid Qutb, one of the intellectual fathers of Muslim Brotherhood. Influential Muslim scholar, he had a great ideological influence on Osama bin Laden. Today, his ideas influence the minds of millions of Muslims all over the world. This is a great insight into what is happening in the minds of those nice, friendly Muslims, who then take weapons and kill infidels and blow themselves up to die as martyrs. In 1948, he came to the United States as a refugee. He escaped an arrest in Egypt. Here is how he saw Americans.
Sayyid Qutb spent another 8 months in America, most of that time in California. The America he perceived was vastly different from the way most Americans viewed their culture. In literature and movies, and especially in the new medium of television, Americans portrayed themselves as sexually curious but inexperienced, whereas Qutb's America was more like the one sketched by the Kinsey Report. Qutb saw a spiritual wasteland, and yet belief in God was nearly unanimous in the United States at the time. It was easy to be misled by the proliferation of churches, religious books, and religious festivals, Qutb maintained. The fact remained that materialism was the real American God. "The soul has no value to Americans," he wrote to one friend. "There has been a Ph.D. dissertation about the best way to clean dishes, which seems more important to them than the Bible or religion." Certainly, the trip had not accomplished what Qutb's friends in Egypt had hoped. Instead of becoming liberalized by his experience in America, he returned even more radicalized. Moreover, his sour impressions, when published, would profoundly shape Arab and Muslim perceptions of the New World at a time when their esteem for America and its values had been high. He also brought home a new and abiding anger about race.
Here is how Americans saw him.
Oddly, the people who knew Qutb in America say he seemed to like the country. They remember him as shy and polite, political, but not overtly religious. Once introduced, he never forgot anyone's name, and he rarely voiced any direct criticism of his host country. Perhaps he kept the slights to himself until he could safely broadcast them at home.
And now listen to what he prescribed Muslims to do with the Westerners.
"The white man in Europe or America is our number one enemy," he declared. "The white man crushes us underfoot, while we teach our children about his civilization, his universal principles, and noble objectives. We are endowing our children with amazement and respect for the master who tramples our honor and enslaves us. Let us instead plant the seeds of hatred, disgust, and revenge in the souls of these children. Let us teach these children, from the time their nails are soft, that the white man is the enemy of humanity, and that they should destroy him at the first opportunity."
Al-Qaeda and ISIS were created not by the West, but by Islam itself and Muslim scholars like Sayyid Qutb.
It is clear that he was writing not just about America. His central concern was modernity. Modern values, secularism, rationality, democracy, subjectivity, individualism, mixing of the sexes, tolerance, materialism, had infected Islam through the agency of Western colonialism. America now stood for all that. Qutb's polemic was directed at Egyptians who wanted to bend Islam around the modern world. He intended to show that Islam and modernity were completely incompatible. His extraordinary project, which was still emerging, was to take apart the entire political and philosophical structure of modernity and return Islam to its unpolluted origins. For him, that was a state of divine oneness, the complete unity of God and humanity. Separation of the sacred and the secular, state and religion, science and theology, mind and spirit. These were the hallmarks of modernity, which had captured the West. But Islam could not abide such divisions. In Islam, he believed, divinity could not be diminished without being destroyed. Islam was total and uncompromising. It was God's final word. Muslims had forgotten this in their enchantment with the West. Only by restoring Islam to the center of their lives, their laws, and their government could Muslims hope to recapture their rightful place as the dominant culture in the world. That was their duty, not only to themselves, but also to God.
I highly recommend this book, in audio or printed form. Do not fall for the fallacy that we are to blame about what is going on in the Muslim world. Do not fall for this fallacy. Do your own research. Read the books.